From the southeastern corner of western North Carolina, this is Folklore. I'm your host, James Hernishin. I'm going to begin with an apology. I'm sorry it took so long for me to ask John Vining to join the show. Almost from the beginning, I was told by more than one listener that I had to get him on. The problem was, no one could come up with a specific issue we could wrap an entire episode around. Almost 4 years went by before I realized that John is so well plugged in that it didn't really matter. He could talk about anything. In fact, when I called him with my invitation, his main concern wasn't what to talk about, but what to avoid, specifically himself. What finally changed my mind was a short piece he wrote for the Tri-and-Dilly Bulletin that appeared in early May. It wasn't about any one thing in particular, just a grab bag of things that we, as residents of Polk County, should be thinking about. Teacher pay, affordable housing, the lack of public restrooms, respect for local history. He called it What is Possible. The list kind of makes sense if you know John, and just about everyone who has taken an interest in the public sphere in this county does know him. For those who haven't had the pleasure, here's a short list of groups he's helped steer over the years. 4-H, the Polk County Recreation Department, Tryon City School Board, Polk County Community Foundation, Super Saturday, Tryon Depot Master Plan Committee, Saluda Grade Rail Corridor, Tryon Small Town Main Street, Tryon Parks Committee, and so on and so forth. For years, he was county director for the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service. His grandfather founded the Bulletin, and his father later took over the paper. If there is ever anyone who deserves to be included in the guest list of a podcast devoted to the culture of our county, he's it. We recorded our conversation on May 19th on what's become my favorite location, the deck of the library in Columbus. We began with teacher pay and took it from there. John Vining, welcome to Folklore.
Well, thanks for having me.
I wanted to talk to you because, one, you're a usual suspect when it comes to interviewing people who know what's going on in Polk County, but also a little while ago you wrote a piece for the Bulletin talking about things you thought we should be worried about, things we should be looking to change in Polk County. And so we'll start off right with one of what you seem to imply was your top priority in that list. I don't know if you prioritized them in order.
Yeah.
We don't pay our teachers enough.
Correct.
And I know that 20 years ago that was not the case. I mean, we probably never paid our teachers what they're really worth, but in the ranking of states across this country, we weren't at the bottom, and now we are. And Polk County does a little bit better than a lot of counties in this state because the commissioners have topped up with their salaries, but we still don't pay them enough. And I'm wondering, how do you think we let that happen?
Well, I think the main thing is that the state has really been given meager, if any, raises at all. And if you take like this year, we're the only state of 50 that doesn't have a budget. Wasn't voted on, didn't have one. Well, heck, budget year ends into June. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to have a budget between now and end of June. And,
they're getting close, maybe.
Yeah, they keep claiming they are. I always like to see the proof in the pudding. Like, you're right. They are. What they said last week was encouraging, but I'll wait and see it in writing before I think that. I mean, you can talk a good game and it not happen.
But there must be bigger forces at play here. Like, I mean, we all say we value our teachers.
Yes.
And the respect they have in the community is considerable, and yet we don't pay them anywhere near as much as we pay a lot of other professions that fundamentally are not as critical.
Yes, I think part of it is sheer numbers. There's a lot more teachers than there are in a lot of areas. The reason I mentioned we need to increase our local supplement, that's really the only way we locally can do much, unless you've just got an in with the General Assembly and can say, hey, you got to step up your game. I think I was on the school board, believe it or not. I was just thinking about the other day, 40 years ago. It's a long time ago. And I think at that time, North Carolina was about 34th in the country in pay. And I think the last thing I saw were 49th or 48th. And we just haven't kept pace. And there doesn't seem to be any big demand. I will say I'm not an anti-charter school guy, but I do think the focus of General Assembly over the last 10 years has been to put more money in charter schools and kind of do the status quo with the traditional public school.
Well, the argument from the defenders of public schools is that the charter schools and the vouchers that people have access to now is siphoning money away from the public system to charter schools, which, again, like you, I'm not opposed to the concept of charter schools.
Yeah.
The idea of an experimental laboratory where we try out new approaches to teaching, which I think was the original reason for charter schools, so you have more flexibility, and then apply those positive outcomes to the public school system. That seems to have been lost.
Yeah, I do think competition's a good thing. So having other options is not a bad thing at all. But like good example, I get this, I don't know where it comes from. I get this newsletter called Education Matters. In most schools that were charter schools prior to the voucher, the average tuition was like $4,800. Well, the state voucher's worth $7,000. So a little over 7,000. So when they went to the voucher program, they cited examples. Nearly every school raised their tuition $3,000. Well, they were doing it before for $4,000, and now it's cost them $7,000, and just sounds kind of bizarre to me.
Well, I think the logical consequence of this is that people who could afford to send their kids to charter schools are still the same people.
Yeah.
Because the cost has gone up. And so the vouchers haven't actually expanded the number of families who can afford to send their kids. All it has done is keep that segment of the population and give them basically a subsidy.
You're right. And I don't know how I feel about means testing. Like, you're right. The people you're talking about, we're going to send their kids regardless. And, again, that newsletter, Education Matters, they were stating that, well, it's kind of unfair in this regard. There's 12 counties in North Carolina that have no charter school or no private school where the voucher can go. So are they having an equal education opportunity as the other, 88 counties? You bring up a great point, and I don't know what the answer is.
Well, certainly, again, our local commission has stepped up a little bit. And I looked at the numbers a while ago, and some counties don't top up their teacher salaries at all.
Yeah.
Some top them up as much as $9,000 in like Wake or Orange County, places.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're
the big cities.
Great.
We're kind of halfway in between.
Yeah, I think I actually called to make sure our local supplement is about 2.5%. I think is what it is. Well, if you go to Henderson and Buncombe, I think theirs is around 10.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we could probably afford 10, but let's just double what our current one is. Let's say we want to give a local. I mean, I'm a realist. I grew up here, and we don't have a boatload of money, and so we have to be practical. But I'd be for at least, if 2.5% is what we're giving now, I'd be absolutely sure to support like say 5%.
So there's probably some effort we can accomplish at the county level. But, the news this week out of Raleigh is that there's an extra $2 billion in the budget that they hadn't anticipated. So we don't want to let the state off the hook, do we?
No. And, it's so funny because one of the reasons we don't have a budget, and they're both controlled by the same party, the House and the Senate couldn't agree. The state, I'm not talking about federal.
Yeah.
And the Senate and the state wants to reduce our income tax level, and the House is saying, hey, we've got some pending bills that are going to come due in 10 years or whatever. So we think we should be more conservative in that regard to make sure we've got enough to cover those costs. So you're right. I think probably that's why we heard earlier last week they're talking about giving significant raises, because they found, we found this extra $2 billion, whatever, that we didn't know we had. And they don't feel any pain because it's already in the coffers.
Well, we have an opportunity this fall to send a message through the elections. My sense is that Polk County isn't high in the priority list of our state reps and senators.
Oh, no question. We only have 20,000 people. I mean, I worked part-time in Henderson County after I retired, and this is back in 2018. I was amazed that Henderson County's population at that time was 104,000. I was thinking it was somewhere like 50 or 60. Well, look at our population of 20,000 and theirs is 104. Say we were sharing, we don't now, but we have in the past, we're sharing a legislator. They don't have to campaign in Polk County because they've got 104 people in Henderson that can, all they have to do is get a little more than half there, and they're already elected.
Well, that is the fate of small counties.
True.
And unless you want to redraw all the county boundaries across the whole state, that's probably not going to change.
Well, back, and it's way before my time, we used to have one senator for every county. North Carolina did. And then they got taken to court, and I don't remember when it was. I want to say it was probably sometime I don't know this at all, but I think it was in the 60s. And, they were saying it wasn't equal representation.
Which it wasn't.
No, it really wasn't. But it was nice because you had your individual legislator, and then they would form coalitions and get things done. But you had one, and we didn't have 20,000, but I'm just going to use today's numbers. If you had one senator in Polk that represented 27,000 people, and you had one in Henderson that represented 104,000, well, that probably is not fair representation.
Well, that's what we've got at the national level from
Yeah.
senators and states.
Yeah,
and that's a problem.
Well, it's crazy. Yeah, I don't know how to describe the current situation. That's just crazy. I don't know how to describe it.
And there's not a lot we can do about these big problems. Well, let's talk about what maybe we can do at the local level. So in your piece in the Bulletin, you talked about the need to have a vision for the county. Can you elaborate? Like, what's your vision for where we're going and maybe where we shouldn't be going and where we should be going?
Well, I would like to see the towns and the county. I mean, I think they have a nice relationship, but I would like to see them have maybe a better working relationship. Historically, I started work in 1982, believe it or not, and there's always been a little bit of friction among, we're the county, you're the town, or whatever. And I just I have a friend that's one of the mayors, and I'm always telling him, you guys need to put a mayor's card together and ride into everybody's Christmas parade to show some unified interest,
common purpose.
Yeah, like here's a good example. Every town doesn't need a leaf vacuum. Well, maybe if the mayors would get together, and I'd even say get together maybe 6 times a year, maybe just for lunch, and say, hey, listen, we're thinking about getting a vacuum, but it's $100,000. And the other town says, well, we've got one. And they can talk about, well, maybe we can rent y'all's for $2,500 for 2 weeks and let us not have to spend this $100,000 on a vacuum and have more shared involvement. Now, it's not going to be easy because anytime people are in circumstances like that, you've got to have cooperation and, agreement up front. But I'd like to see more of that going on than there is. But, and again, I'm not saying the towns and the county don't like each other. I think they have a cordial relationship. I just don't think they have, they aren't proactive. Like, here's an example. I was thinking about this morning because I knew we were going to meet. Columbus has the 4th of July festival, and I think the cost of their fireworks now is about $24,000. See, as a taxpayer of Polk County, I don't live in Columbus, but I would love to see the county just go to Columbus and say, listen, this is a countywide holiday. We want to give you $24,000 to cover your firework cost. And you might say, well, why would you do it? Well, let's talk about Columbus. 40% of Columbus's land is non-taxed. When you start adding up all the land the county owns, you've got the Stearns, you've got the courthouse, you've got both blocks around the courthouse, You've got the NCDOT facility. You've got the old school bus garage. When you look at all the property that the Columbus town cannot tax, it's significant. So why wouldn't the county say, well, listen, we understand, we tie up a lot of your land and you can't get tax revenue from it. So what we want to do is give you the funds needed for this, and all the citizens have an opportunity to enjoy it. Here's the funds to cover your firework costs. I mean, it sounds simplistic, but to me, it seems pretty logical.
Well, there are other issues that could follow the same approach. I was thinking policing.
Yes.
Where I grew up, there weren't lots of local municipal policing departments. There were, in Canada, we had the RCMP, who basically were everywhere outside of big cities. And most provinces don't even have their own provincial police department.
Yep.
We have several police departments in Polk County. And again, there's only 20,000 people.
Right.
Is that an argument for amalgamation?
Well, you're trying to get me in trouble now. It makes a lot of sense, but I tell you, there's a lot of local resistance to that. Every time I used to attend I went to all the county commissioner meetings and occasionally go to different town council meetings. Whenever that issue came up, there was always a core group that now there may be a minority, but they were a vocal minority that they didn't want to give up their own policing. And, I don't know. I mean, what you say makes sense. I'm not sure it'd be something I want to take on because I don't like to be disliked too much.
Well, I agree that there is maybe a sense of pride.
It could
sort
be.
of Minnesota
It
has
could be.
we're like one of the smallest police departments in the state.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of pride that there are police, and I don't know if it's an Andy Griffith image or something, but the idea of ceding control of your police to, say, the Polk County Sheriff's Department rubs people the wrong way, even if economically there's a really powerful argument to be made.
I think what you just said is 100% correct. And I can't build on it. I want to be careful too. I mean, really, I'm just amazed. It probably is a pride thing. People love the idea that they know their officers and they speak to them and, and they see them. And it's kind of a small town thing, sort of. But, you're right. I mean, if you look at the residents of Tryon, I think there's maybe 1,700 in Tryon, about 1,000 in Columbus. And Saluda always asks, people tell me it's 500 in the winter and 25,000 in summer. I don't know if that's true, but that's what people tell me.
I think it's around 700, and it's been that way for about 100 years.
Yeah, and Tryon's actually lost since I was a kid. We don't have a lot in these individual towns. And then when you start doing the analysis, like I said, what you say makes a lot of sense, but
yeah, I think in Saluda, the police account for a third of our budget.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me. Of course, I think law enforcement's expensive, and I understand it. All the equipment, I know the detail and to do all the equipment adds to a car, it's pretty significant.
It is. It is not cheap to run a police department.
No, it is not. And I'm not even saying, I'm not even advising to do that. If you're going to run one, run it the right way. So that is not what I'm saying. So,
and another thing is, and I learned this, or I was reminded of this while I was interviewing candidates for the Polk County Sheriff's Department in the recent primaries.
Yeah.
The current sheriff didn't find time to talk to me, but his challengers all did. And they said that what they really want is a more intimate connection between the people and the police. We want people to know their community. We want the community to know their police officers. And maybe that kind of relationship comes at a cost, and that having your own separate police departments is the cost we pay to have if it's properly allowed to evolve, that kind of relationship.
Yeah. And it really is popular. I mean, I will say that, to have your own. I better leave it at that.
Okay. Is there anything else along the same lines that we could do in Polk County that might, be a rational efficiency or efficacy measure?
Well, I always tell my friends all my ideas cost money, so I don't want to be misleading anyone. You know, a real issue, it's not my favorite issue that was in my letter, but affordable housing's just a real concern. A young couple, I don't know where they'll live. I guess they'll live with their one of them's parents. There's just not a place to go, and it's easy for me because I've been in the same house for a number of years. But when you hear values of what the houses are now, I mean, it's just. I mean, I even have a hard time believing it. I'm going, what in the world? Like I had a friend of mine this morning help me out, and I think the average value of a home in Polk County right now is about $308,000. But I think in December of 2024, the average sale was $475, and I mean, you got to have a pretty sizable income to be able to afford that.
Yeah, I mean, the way in which statisticians measure this is the ratio between your annual income and the cost of a house. And in some parts of this country, it's outrageous. I mean, New York City would be like 9 times, the cost of your annual salary. I think in North Carolina, it's more around 3.5 to 4 to 5. I could be wrong.
No, I believe it.
It used to be under 3, and that was manageable.
Yeah.
In the same way, renting, if you spent more than a quarter of your income on rent, that was considered too much.
Yeah.
Now you're lucky if it doesn't cost you half of your income.
I agree. I agree, and I understand the need for rent. I mean, they have to pay taxes like everybody else. They have maintenance they've got to do. They don't want to do deferred maintenance. So, I mean, I understand why. I guess overall, the big thing is just the general construction cost overall. And I'm speaking primarily from the material side. Materials are just,
Sure.
I mean, I have friends will tell me what they paid for a sheet of plywood. I'm going, good Lord. My gosh, you couldn't build a house if you had to build a lot of plywood. I mean,
No, and the current tariff regime is making cost of supplies even worse.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why affordable housing, and there's entire movements developed to try to solve this problem. I mean, I'm on the planning board in Saluda, and we grapple with this because there are pressures that discourage people from selling their homes or renting them long term.
Yes.
The attraction of renting your house out on Airbnb or VRBO for only the 3 or 4 months of the year, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that discourages people from providing homes for people to actually live in.
Yeah.
What can we do about it?
Well, my crazy letter, I'll call it crazy. I didn't think it was crazy, but we've got to come up with a model that works, that's acceptable to the residents. In my letter, I mentioned modern day mill village. It's not a perfect solution, and you'd have pushback because people say, well, we don't want, but when you look back to the early 1900s, there's remnants of 3 mill villages in Trine. There's a remnant of one here in Columbus. And the houses are small. They're not huge, and at least to get like a young couple. And I'm when I say modest income, I mean some of the modest income seniors. I mean they probably can't afford to pay rent or to buy a home here. So I know that sounds kind of simplistic, and I know we don't have a textile mill to build all the houses, which would be great if we had a situation like that, but. We just got to look at a new model, and I don't know what that is, but my crazy answer was to consider maybe a mill village type setting where you have individual small houses clustered together, and see that restricts you really to the 3 towns because we have no sewer in the county. You just couldn't do it out in the rural areas, so you're talking about you'd have to do it in Trine, Saluda, or Columbus. Those are really your only options.
Well, at the same time, though, there's a lot of opposition to the notion of, higher density, more compact neighborhoods. People don't like change to their bucolic, quiet town point of view. And the way I've discovered the county is basically said, okay, we're going to be agrarian, big lots, 5 acre, 3 acre zoning. And then the 3 towns get to be where the higher density is. But even in the towns, there's opposition. And we look at what happened in Columbus with the Enchanted Homes development. Now, they're not going to be cheap, but they're going to be not outrageously expensive. But there's still an enormous amount of opposition in Columbus to building what that land was actually zoned for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think people around here, like, they use Boiling Springs, South Carolina, as their example. I mean,
A punching bag of Boiling Springs.
oh my gosh. I mean, I never forget, maybe it was about 7 or 8 years ago, I started noticing and going, good Lord, can they put a house on every parcel of land there is? And maybe the way to overcome that is to make sure there's some sort of green space between some of these larger, like, and I don't know what the solution would be. Let's say you purchased 50 acres and you dedicate 10 as just a green space that's not buildable. I mean, in terms of, you might put a trail on it or something like that, but at least it would give the cushion of the smaller little mill villages.
Well, there's a phrase that in developers use cluster building. So
I'm familiar with it.
you squeeze the houses together, so same number on the total number of acres, but they're closer together so that you do leave open space.
Yeah, a lot of states that have significant land costs have done that to really save farming. To be honest with you, what they'll do is they'll buy the farmland and tell the farmer, hey, you could lease this and keep farming like you always have, but we're going to put a dozen houses over here on this small parcel of land, with the idea that it would allow farming to stay in the community. Because to me, one of the greatest things of Polk County is the fact it's still rural.
I hear that all the time.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, goodness. Of course, I tell folks, I grew up in a small town, like the ruralness of it. Every time they want to widen the road here between Columbus and Tryon to 4 lanes, I go, no, they've got that in Bowling Springs.
Yeah.
So we have to slow down, because, just leave 5 minutes earlier if it's a big issue on travel. But, I like it rural.
Well, I think that's the common sentiment. Everybody wants to keep Polk County slower, quieter, more rural. And that's fair, because that's the nature of this community. And the people who grew up here and the people who have moved here because of that, that's their expectation. At the same time, change happens.
Right.
And what I like to say in the planning board is our job is not to prevent change, it's to manage it, because you can't hold back the water.
Well, I compliment you on being on the planning board, because I think that at times can be challenging. And then not just Saluda, I'm talking Tryon, Columbus, the county. It sounds like a fun role. It may be rewarding, but I don't think fun would be the adjective I would use.
No, I mean, it's either really boring,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with the minutiae of ordinances,
Sure.
or it's really contentious.
Yeah.
When you threaten someone's quality of life.
Absolutely. No, I fully understand that. So, like I said, I appreciate people who are willing to do it, and it's sometimes like a thankless job.
Well, for our final topic, I want to address an element that ties these other things together, which is how people exchange their ideas. What is the forum for developing a shared understanding of what this county should be? And we need communications media.
Yeah.
And we're lucky in Polk County to still have a newspaper, because the number of newspapers across this country that have folded in the last 10 or 15 years is enormous. It's measured in the thousands.
Yeah.
The number of journalists working at real established news organizations has plummeted. We still have a paper that calls the Tryon Daily Bulletin. It's not really daily anymore. It's always been about more than Tryon, or at least for a long time.
Sure.
And you have a personal connection to the paper. So I wanted your thoughts on how well the paper is doing, given the enormous challenges to the local newspaper business model, which is almost impossible to execute these days.
Well, let me firstly, just like you, I'm glad we have a paper. And it's a little different with 2 issues versus 5. I know when my grandfather started the paper, they had 6 issues, and during World War II, they couldn't get. I mean, it's so funny. My grandfather had these bulletins that were printed in red, blue, green. That was the only ink they could get because there's such short supplies during World War II. And so after that, he dropped the Saturday edition. So he used to go Monday through Saturday, which I don't know how he lived because my parents followed up and they did it Monday through Friday, and they were pretty busy. So I can't imagine doing that 6th issue.
You got to really love the business.
You really do. You really do. And my grandfather was kind of a natural newspaper guy, interested in people, wanted to know what was going on. I never forget when I was a kid, I was about 10 years old, and he said, my middle name's Hamilton. I said, John Hamilton, what's going on? I said, well, did you hear about the wreck out at Harmon Field? He'd go, no, I didn't, but he'd be on the phone as soon as I left calling the police department wanting to know about the wreck at Harmon Field. I mean, he just wanted to have it, and they didn't have any paid reporters. It was really just community submitting items, and it was my grandfather at that time, and my dad a little bit, and then, of course, my dad had that role later. I'm not critical because I think it's a real challenge to have a paper today. And I think Jeff Allison, who's with the paper, he does a great job. And, I don't know, I don't have any inside information, so I don't know how they're sustaining themselves, but I hope it continues. And I think they turn 100 in 26, in 2 years, the Bulletin will turn 100 years old.
Yeah, and assuming we still have it in 2 years.
Yeah, that's true.
That's an accomplishment. Again, because so many papers have not been able to make the transition to where most advertising is on the internet and cost of printing. I wouldn't want to be running a local newspaper. I worked in the business for decades, but there's no way I would try to do that today. So I also try to limit my criticism of what it is accomplishing. But at the same time, a lot of significant news stories are not getting covered because we don't have the Bulletin does not have the resources to send a reporter to every public meeting to do investigative journalism, to spend hours talking to people and finding out what's really going on. That is just way beyond the capacity of a paper like the Bulletin.
Yeah.
So into the gap, comes Facebook and other social media, which is a free for all where you can't trust much of what you see.
Yeah.
Is it possible for a community to have that kind of trustworthy communications forums if we can have a paper that does it? I mean, we don't have radio stations or TV stations, and we're overlooked by the folks in Greenville and the folks in Asheville when it comes to television networks. Like, I really struggle. And one of the reasons Folklore exists as a podcast is because we can have these discussions, and I got like upwards of 1,000 people might tune in to it every now and then. And I think this serves a purpose, but it doesn't come near to filling the gap that I think we used to have when the Bulletin would come out 5 or 6 days a week and would tell you pretty much everything you needed to know, if not the details, at least to be aware of what the issues that were before the boards of commissioners and that kind of thing. I just worry, and I don't know I'm not expecting you to have an answer for this, but I worry about how do we possibly keep going on and maintaining Polk County as a community if we don't have a place where everybody sort of congregates and shares their thoughts.
Yeah, that's a real challenge. And I'll tell you, since COVID, my experience is people really don't want to communicate. I'm just appalled at the fact that people just don't want to get together or, I'm not saying close friends, they'll do that, but, just as a big group. 20 years ago, I had this idea, although it limits the number, we don't really look at the big issues. So I had this idea of doing what I call the Committee of 25. And it'd be different people from different communities of different careers. And we look at whatever the issue of the day is, affordable housing. Oh, I use a simplistic thing. Do we have an alert system for people downstream from Lake Adger or downstream from Lake Summit? Because, now with technology, it would be nothing to program into the phone, hey, if the dam is Lake Azure's dam's 102, and the Lake Summit Dam is 105 years old, and I'm hoping they're going to be here another 100 years. But I also am a realist to know that things could, like Helene, things could happen. I mean, it's amazing to me they bore the raft they did through Helene.
Sounds like they knew what they were doing when they built those.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, the one at Lake Azure at that time was the second time that style. I don't know if you ever noticed, it's got like pillars in the back.
Yeah.
The second time that style had been used in the U.S., which I thought was fascinating because the Lake Summit one's different. And but we need some sort of, and they may have it. You know, I just don't know because I don't live there. We need some sort of alert system that, hey, if something's happening, you send it out through the phone just to those residents and say, hey, we're concerned about the situation with the dam, or there's more water coming over than we expected. We just want to give you a heads up, so you might want to seek higher ground or whatever. But if we do have that, I'm not aware of it.
But no, I have a suggestion, and this isn't usually what I do, but I'd like to bounce it off you. So, again, the local newspaper business model is on its deathbed, for most parts of this country. And again, we're just hanging on by our fingernails here in Polk County. But there are examples where nonprofit organizations, community foundations have stepped in. For instance, Philadelphia's made newspapers owned by their community foundation for that city. So they take away the need to make a profit.
Yeah.
And they're doing a pretty good job. And there's networks of nonprofit news organizations. Asheville has the Asheville Watchdog, Carolina Press for politics at the state level. I would love to see the Polk County Community Foundation say, you know what, we do a lot of good on all these other elements. We support the arts, and we support students, and maybe we should support news.
Well, I think they've discussed it before, and I don't know where it's gone. I'm not involved in those discussions, but I think the foundation has talked about it before. Now, obviously they didn't start one, so maybe they figured it was cost prohibitive, or I don't know the reasons behind it, but I think the discussions occurred before. I remember maybe seems like 3 or 4 years ago there was a discussion about having a community, not calendar, that's too general, but a way to keep people informed. And again, I don't know where that went.
Well, I mean, when I started Folklore, I kind of did back of the envelope calculations, and I thought to do something useful would cost $250,000 a year, because you'd have to have like 3 or 4 people,
Yep.
and someone to run the books, a couple of people to actually do the work, and someone to oversee it. So it's at least $250,000 just to have a bare bones operation. That kind of money is not what the foundation's used to handing out on an annual basis.
Sure. Yeah. And the downside, there's always a downside to the upside, is I wouldn't want it to cripple the Bulletin, because and not because of my family background. I would say that if it was another family that was involved in the paper, I wish it was 5 days, but it's not. And I'd rather have it 2 days than nothing. And so my one concern I'd have is if it replaced the need for the other. Does that make sense?
Yes. But my response to that would be, well, I don't think the Bulletin does a lot of the essential news gathering anymore. I mean, it doesn't go to most of the meetings. It doesn't conduct interviews with people about topical events. It generally prints news releases from organizations. Sure. In other words, it's reactive. It's not really a proactive journalism enterprise.
I guess if you structured it where maybe that would be the only focus of what you're talking about, they would cover all the community meetings. I'm going to say not everything, not every organization, but like the county, the towns. You can give a full report on that, and maybe any issue that's coming up, like let's just say Dollywood wanted to expand. They wanted to build in Polk County. that's a big issue. I don't want a Dollywood. I don't. That's not why I'm saying that. But something that's a real what I call a big issue.
But for instance, a data center.
Yeah, I'm really been watching it because in South Carolina they've really been getting requests for data centers, and I don't know enough about it, so I'm totally neutral about data centers. But when I watch the news, the people who show up those meetings, they are not neutral.
No,
And
for me, the data center, not that worried about it in a sense that data centers require a lot of water, and we
we don't have enough water as it is.
only got a couple small rivers, and I don't
Yeah.
think Polk County's situated to be a data center. But
Yeah.
who knows?
Technology gets better all the time. When they require, I'm just making up a number. They require 100,000 gallons a day. Well, who knows? In 5 years, they may only need 15.
Right.
And so, that's one really neat thing about technology is it does change. I mean, one of the things that concerns me, I like it, but I'm really concerned about AI. It might go out of control. Where your boundaries going to be. I mean, well, my brother sent me this little picture of a lamb climbing on the mother's back that had fallen into the creek. And I told him, I said, I don't believe that's real. And it turned out it wasn't. But, it looked real. I mean,
Yeah.
but, we were talking over the weekend. Back in the old days, you say, well, if you see it, it's real. Well, that's not true anymore. I mean, you can take a guy like me who's not particularly good looking, put me in an AI, and I may end up being the hottest model on the market. So,
Yeah.
we got to be realistic about it. But we need some sort of boundaries. I don't want to do away with it because I think it has a lot of merit. But where are we going?
Okay, let's end on where are we going? What can we end on an optimistic note? What are some things you've seen recently that give you kind of like, okay, I think things are going okay on this score?
Well, remember I mentioned I want all our elected leaders to work together, and I think for the most part, they all get along. It wasn't anything about personality or the fact they get along. I wish they would be more proactive. Like I said, say, hey, look, maybe we can join you on this venture or whatever. Be more, I guess, open-minded about that. I know they have a budget they have to live within, but that doesn't, the budget's going to change come July 1. So, that doesn't mean they can't. When I visited Delana, Georgia one time, we visited with the mayor and he was talking about how, well, the county and I did this and we in the county did this and we in the county did that. And I'm going, good Lord, I've never heard of a situation like that. And I said, how many county commissioners do you have? He goes, 1. I said, what? He said, yeah, there were like 6 counties at that time in Georgia that only had 1 county commissioner. And so he made all the decisions. They had a real good progressive. When I say progressive, I don't mean liberal or conservative.
Forward thinking.
Forward thinking. They had one real forward thinking county commissioner. He'd do crazy things like they would be building a new playground for children, and the county commissioner would pull up and say, hey, what you guys doing? They go, oh, we're putting this playground in for the kids. He goes, what's it costing you? And they'd say like $50,000. Said, count the county in for 20. I'm just like that. Now, I know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I've never been to somewhere where they were so, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out, James. Just total cooperation.
Have you been paying attention to the Saluda Grade Trail
Yeah.
project? Okay. Did you go to the public meeting they had at the high school the other day?
No, I know there's been a lot of interest and, there's also opposition too. So there's, for every change, there's a positive side and a negative side.
Right. But I bring it up because my impression at the high school meeting, which wasn't an opportunity for people to express their concerns. It was more to listen to
Sure.
the state of the project.
Sure.
People were really happy. The opposition has kind of, I think, evaporated for the most part, or at least has ceased becoming, something you hear. And I also detected a level of cooperation. I think it's going to be interesting to watch Saluda and Tryon and Landrum because they're all be competing a little bit for new business opportunities to take advantage of the trail. But there seemed to me to be a level of this is something we share. It's a win-win scenario. This is not a zero-sum game. And I don't know how that's going to play out, and I want to do some more episodes about that in the near future. But I felt a positive vibe about cooperative approach to taking advantage of what this trail means for the county.
I understand. And well, I'm currently on the tourism board in Tryon, and I keep getting concerned because I don't think we're discussing how significant. I mean, I think the first year alone, mainly because of Swamp Rabbit down in Greenville, it is so. I mean, if you go to Travelers Rest, it was a dying town. My gosh, Travelers Rest is one of the. I mean, people. It's like someplace people want to live now. And if you go there on a Saturday, there'll be. I mean, you won't have to sit there long. You sit there 30 minutes, and you'll see 200 people go by on their bikes and stuff. I mean, just
It's almost too popular.
almost, yeah. But because of its popularity and its close proximity, I think it's not unrealistic to say the first year there'll be 25,000 visitors. Easy.
Well, we'll find out in a few years.
Yeah.
And that's a good place to stop. So thanks so much for the time. And I hope maybe I can get a chance to talk to you again.
Well, after everybody hears this one, they're going to say, "Don't get that dude back. We've heard too much." So
I doubt that. But again, thank you very much.
Oh, well, I appreciate you sharing.
I hope that's not the last time John and I get to talk. As many of you know, he's dealing with what his doctors say is a terminal illness. But as far as I can tell, he hasn't let that stop him from continuing to do what he's always tried to do, make Polk County a better place to live. Thanks for listening, and if you have any suggestions for guests or topic, you can email them to jamesh@polklore.com.